Design Pickle is a big supporter of everything unSeminary. If you haven't heard, they are a flat rate, unlimited use graphic design service helping churches across the nation. We're a proud client of theirs and love how they help us make social media graphics and those downloadable PDF article summaries that we've been sending out. Even if you have a designer, you need to check them out. To learn more, visit designpickle.com/churches. On that same page, you can watch a totally free 30-minute video of me and the founder of Design Pickle talking about modern church marketing. And of course, pickles.
Welcome to the unSeminary podcast. Are you looking for practical ministry help to drive your ministry further, faster? Have a sinking feeling that your ministry training didn't prepare you for the real world? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in pursuit of stuff that we wish they had taught in seminary. Buckle up and let's get started with this week's unSeminary podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the unSeminary podcast. My name's Rich, host around these parts. I am so glad that you've decided to tune in, and you're going to be rewarded for that. We've got a great conversation. Should be a fun time together today with Pastor Gene Jennings from True North Church. This church is a great church. You should get a chance to plug in with them. Was planted in 2004, so it's, what does that make it, 13, 14 years old, in South Carolina. It's always good, particularly in the wintertime, to talk to somebody down south. It's one of the fastest growing churches in the country, and Gene serves as associate pastor there, which I think just means you do everything Steve doesn't want to do.
Exactly.
So why don't you tell us about the church, Gene? I'm so glad you're on the show today.
That's so funny you said that, because that's when people ask me what I do. I say, I do everything Steve doesn't want to do.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's the same thing for sure.
Kind of the, I guess some would call it executive pastor, but I like associate better. I never liked the executive. It's too businessy for me.
Right.
I like the pastoral role. And I used to be over the financial piece, but we now have an administrative pastor that helps with that. But
nice.
Well, I forgot what you asked me now.
Yeah, why don't you kind of tell us about the church? If people were to come this weekend, what would they experience? And then, give us a bit of a flavor of the church.
Yeah, it's just a great church, all the way from the parking lot all the way inside. We've done a great job with our first impressions teams, and people always marvel and rave about just the welcoming atmosphere that we have. Obviously, casual dress, very casual atmosphere, rocking band, a great production. It's just a great show, and the kids building, kids ministries, as well as in our auditorium. I'm living the dream, Rich. I dreamed about this church starting in 1987 when I was in seminary.
Nice.
And I finally saw this dream come true 19 years later when I joined the staff here in 2006, just a couple of years into the ministry of the church here.
Now, so you've obviously been there, quite a long time, and a big part of leading is translating that dream into getting other people to kind of join and to say, hey, we want to be a part of that. And I'm assuming in your role, that's a lot of times in that kind of associate pastor or executive pastor role, a big part of what that is kind of, where does the dream hit reality? How are we actually making this happen? Has that been a bit of your journey?
Steve Davis, our lead pastor, he's the visionary, and he's the one that casts the vision, and he dreams the dreams. And I guess my job is more helping out with the day-to-day operations and staff oversight. We got a ministry resident program we're just starting. I'll be supervising those guys. When I told you I was living the dream, I'm from North Augusta. This is my hometown.
Oh, nice.
But I left here. I was a coach in the public school system.
Okay.
That was my first career, and I felt called to go to the ministry, and went to Fort Worth, Texas, Southwestern Seminary back in 1986. And, when I left here, my wife and I are both from here. When we left here, we thought, I guess we'll never live here again. You never go back to your hometown to serve the church. I mean, who does that?
Right.
In fact, having said that, I remember years ago reading an article that Tony Campolo wrote that is kind of a precursor to your podcast. He had an article called Things They Didn't Teach You in Seminary.
Nice. Yeah, great.
And one of the things he talked about was, for some reason, we had this impression that when you leave to go to the ministry or go to seminary, Bible college, whatever, you have to go to somewhere else, some other location in order to do ministry. And Campolo said, why don't you go right back to where you grew up? You already have a network of friends. You've got family there. You've got relationships there. Because as well as I do, when you go to a new town, it takes years to develop relationships. Why not go back to your hometown where you already know everybody?
Yeah, so true.
So that's kind of my story. I did that. It took a while to do that. But for us to come full circle back to where we grew up. And And I dreamed of seeing a church, a contemporary style church like True North, like I said, even from my seminary days.
Now, was Steve Davis, is he from that area as well? Was he from?
Steve is actually from Illinois.
Okay,
So
interesting.
God used an Illinois boy, brought him to South Carolina. He was on staff at a local church here. He saw a need for this style of ministry, and he stepped out in faith and started it. He and I had a mutual friend, and the mutual friend suggested that we get together because our mutual friend knew me. He knew my heart and my dream for a church like this in North Augusta. And so Steve and I kind of got together and we talked about it. And about a year and a half into it, True North was growing like crazy. And Steve called up and said, "Hey, you want to come help?" And it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Very cool. Very cool.
I didn't pray about that one.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, a lot of times you run into church leaders who in thriving churches that are growing like yours, where there is a strong, leader within it who is from that community. And I think that is that's a good thing to kind of to keep in mind, particularly for church planners or people that are, thinking about, starting out, for sure. That's really cool. Now, I would imagine at your, phase of growth as a church, thinking about the next generation is, really is a big deal. Trying to wrestle through how do you engage the next generation to really take the ministry on and run with it. What does that look like for True North? How are you kind of doing that at the church?
Well, this is good timing because right now we're in 2 services. We're packing out 2 services. Actually, next Sunday, and we'll be starting a 5:00 service on Sunday afternoon. It's going to be identical to the morning services, but we're going to create a different environment. So it'll be basically the same on the inside, but on the outside, in the auditorium, outside the building, we're going to have coffee bars, some food trucks, just fire pits, and some cool things that we hope will attract that age group. So we're intentionally doing that right now, as well as I mentioned earlier, this ministry resident program. We've got 2 young men. These are like kind of paid internships, if you will, that we're working with those guys. And we're being more deliberate now than ever with trying to groom and train the next generation, because I'm 55 years old. Steve's a few years behind me. Hopefully we got some time left, but we also know we've got to pass the torch.
Yeah,
and we're trying to get ourselves in position right now to pass the torch to the next generation.
Now, give me a sense of that ministry residency program. What are those guys engaged in, or what will they be engaged in? How is that structured?
Yeah, they're kind of like part-time staff, but we've created a monthly syllabus for these guys. I'm giving them reading assignments every month, videos for them to watch, some teaching, and then some practicum assignments where they will be a part of a certain ministry or event each month. They'll attend leadership team meetings. We want them to get the full spectrum, everything that we do here from preschool to Celebrate Recovery. Everything we do, we want them to have their fingers or being hands involved in a little bit of everything that we do throughout the year.
Very cool. That's cool. And how did you find these 2? Are they internal folks, or are they
internal
folks from somewhere else? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, internal guys.
And so is the intention, I guess it's early days, but is the thought that, this may be a way to kind of find new staff, train new staff, or is it thought, because I know some people do these residency programs explicitly to say, hey, we're going to kind of send these folks out. We intend they're going to go plant somewhere else or something like that.
Right. Yeah, at this point, it's either or. They may join us full-time in the future, or we may send them out and they may go join another church staff somewhere else.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I know being a fast-growing church, leadership development is a big part of the equation, continuing to, raise up, leaders. What does that look like for you at True North?
I think I'd be lying if I told you we had a strategic plan for leadership development.
Right. Yeah.
And it seems like it's getting harder now just because our staff is growing so fast. We have a meeting every Tuesday, and I remarked to our staff even Tuesday when I was starting the meeting off. I remember just a few years ago we could all fit around a conference room table,
right? And
now there's like 25 of us in a room,
right?
And that's huge to us. And so we're still trying to get to know each other's names.
Right.
But no, we do know each other's names. But as far as a strategic, disciplined approach to leadership development, we don't have anything like that other than just I will say we have an incredible team. We're more like a family than a staff. We just love each other. Most of us are internal hires, and so we already kind of knew each other even years before they became staff members. So it's just a great team, and we work like a family together.
Very cool. That's so important. It's so critical.
So we're pretty low key. I mean, Steve and I both are pretty laid back. We don't, we like structure, but we don't overdo it on structure. We just, I don't know. We just kind of we have that trust factor. We trust each other. Remember years ago we read that book called The Speed of Trust.
Oh yeah, great
I think
book.
Steve Covey wrote that. We really read that together as a staff and talked about that. And I really feel like the speed of trust works for us. And we do hold each other accountable, of course, and all that. But leadership development is just kind of we doing it together as a group, as a team, as a family.
Very cool. Well, what would you say it is that the Lord's using to grow True North? What is the thing that he seems to be, or, the collection of things? I know it can be hard to kind of nail down sometimes, but what would you think those things might be?
Yeah, and obviously it is the Lord. This place was ready. This area was ready for that. We're in the Augusta, Georgia area. We're right here on the state line. In fact, I can see the trees of Georgia from the front porch of my house. We're right here on the state line. Yeah. And Augusta, Georgia is known for three things: the Masters Golf Tournament, and the birthplace of James Brown, and the birthplace of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Right.
But most people don't know the third thing. They don't care about the Southern Baptist Convention. But there's a lot of Baptist churches around here is my point. So tons of churches. Obviously, we're in the middle of the Bible Belt. But North Augusta was ready for a church with contemporary flavor to it, with the style of music we play and the dress code. But I'll also say that Steve, our pastor, Steve Davis, he's the most genuine, humble man that I've known, and certainly one of those genuine pastors. And I think and he's just real from the stage. People know that. People love his teaching. They love his style. He's not always polished. He's great. He's a vision caster. He's a cheerleader. He's a Bible teacher. And people are just attracted to him. And he's it's not about him. In fact, if you research True North Church, I think you'll see his picture on the website with some of the other staff members. But he doesn't like his name out there, as far as it's not about him. He doesn't speak at a lot of conferences. He hasn't written any books. He's just a genuine, humble, authentic guy that wants to see people know Jesus. I really believe that has a lot to do with our attitude as staff members, because we just love him to death and we'll do anything for him. I think our membership knows that as well.
It's very true. I think a lot of times those internal disciplines and just our kind of internal positioning, I think the Lord sees a heart like that and is like, hey, I want to bless a ministry like that, because it's not it's not going to his head. I think there is a connection between those two for sure. Is there anything else you want to share before we jump on with the rest of the episode?
I mentioned living the dream, and I think we talked about it briefly. My job right now, or my challenge right now personally, is I've lived my dream. I'm living my dream, and I want to learn how to translate that dream to the younger generation. I want them to develop their dream church. And so hopefully we'll be able to do that here in my, the next 10 to 20 years, whatever time I've got left in ministry. I've been doing this 30 years. It's just not letting it stop with my dream and letting that dream continue with the next generation.
What does that look like? How are you doing that? What are you what kind of steps are you taking to try to help that next generation articulate their dream and live it?
I think we're still trying to figure that out. With the 5, I mentioned the service we're doing. Probably just focusing, and Steve has been unapologetic telling our membership that we create our services for that generation. We have a lot of senior adults that come. They love Steve. They love our music. But we pretty much try to target that audience on Sunday mornings with our production, with our music style, with our video, just all the things that we do. We're just trying to be intentional about meeting that generation, that culture.
This is the unSeminary podcast. Stuff you wish they taught in seminary.
Well, we're going to jump into the lightning round, that part of the episode where we ask similar questions of everybody that's on the show. Super excited to have Gene Jennings with us today from True North Church, a great church. Gene, what's an online resource you're using these days that's helping you out?
Well, it's not Skype. So we use Slack a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
We like Slack as a staff. communication tool. I use Evernote personally, and I'm on Twitter a lot. I don't Facebook a whole lot, but I'm on Twitter a good bit.
Nice, very good. Slack's a great communication tool. If you haven't checked it out, you really should for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
What's a book you've read in the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year that's shaping your thinking and ministry?
You know, I'm always in several books. I had a professor in seminary said you should be reading at least 6 books at the same time, and I tend to do that. But as far as leadership, I'm actually reading a book that I heard you talk about recently, Destined to Lead, Designed to Lead.
Designed to Lead.
Designed to Lead. It's right here on my desk. Designed to Lead. I'm just diving into that one. I read a lot of stuff just on my relationship with Christ and spiritual walk. I recently pulled out a book called The Key to Triumphant Living, which is an old classic by Jack Taylor. I just really believe that if I can continue living in Christ and bearing the fruit of the Spirit, that I'm going to be a good leader. I think if you got love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control in you, you can't lose. And so I tend to focus a lot just on my spiritual walk. Not that I don't read leadership books.
No, I get that.
Obviously. But I don't know. I read a lot of stuff, but those are probably 2 that are most recent.
Yeah, very cool.
In my library.
What's a ministry you're looking to that kind of inspires you?
You know, Compassion International inspires me.
Fantastic, yeah.
I love what they do. We've been sponsoring kids and being a part of Compassion for over 30 years now. I think my wife and I always sponsoring kids. I've been on a couple of Compassion trips. I just love how they work with local churches and how they're reaching people in some impoverished places with the gospel of Jesus.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, Compassion's amazing. If you haven't, I'd be surprised if there's a pastor that hasn't heard of Compassion International, but you haven't checked them out and looked closely at them. They're an amazing ministry. They do some great work around the world. If you could get 15 minutes with any leader alive, who would you want to get that with and why?
You know, I thought about that. I think I've always thought it would be interesting to talk to George W. Bush because, he was less than 9 months into his presidency and then 9/11 happened.
Right.
So he never was able to fulfill his agenda. His entire perspective obviously changed. And I'm not sure if he ever got enough credit for that, but I would like to talk to him about how he went through that transition from running for presidency to winning having this big agenda set out that he was going to do for the country, and all of a sudden the world literally changed that day.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good perspective for sure. Things did change so quickly for him, overnight for sure. Yeah. Well, I know being an associate pastor at a church like True North can take a lot. And what do you do just for fun when you just want to kind of kick back, relax, enjoy life a little bit?
Well, it's kind of nerdy, but I follow the financial markets a lot. I actually swing trade options.
Really?
Yeah, I'm learning how to try to make money as an option trader on the side.
Interesting. That's cool.
So I spend a lot of my time at night reading, watching webinars, and not just for my own self. I want to teach other people how to do it as well.
Interesting.
So I'm fascinated with the stock market, and specifically a discipline called technical analysis. I spend a lot of time learning about how to read stock charts and stuff.
Huh. Very cool. Well, that's neat, man. You're the first person in probably 190 episodes that has said swing trade options. That's a lot of people go for walks, a lot of bike riders. The first swing trade option,
I do have a great wife and 2 grandkids, though.
On the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. No, this has been great, Gene. It's been fun getting a chance to connect today. If people want to get in touch with the church or with you, how can they do that?
We're at truenorthchurch.com, and I think my email address is on there. I'm on Twitter at Gene Jennings. That's where you're going to find me most of the time. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Wonderful. Appreciate you being on the show today, Gene. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect. Check out unSeminary Inbox. You can sign up at unSeminary.com, and we'll send you helpful training resources every week. Plus, you'll gain immediate access to our exclusive members area with tons of resources you can use. Connect with Rich on Twitter at Rich Birch or through email, rich@unseminary.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at unseminary.com. It includes links to what we talked about today and more. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Did you enjoy today's episode? Drop by iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Join us next week when we'll learn more stuff we wish they taught in seminary.